I'm Larry Ray, President and CEO of American Manganese, Inc., listed on the TSX Venture, ticker symbol AMY, A-M-Y, with proprietary patents in the U.S., China, and South Africa. Our focus is on recycling lithium-ion batteries for electric vehicles. China recently legislated the responsibility for recycling onto their electric vehicle manufacturers and importers. For more information, please visit AmericanManganeseInc.com or phone me, Larry Ray, at 778-574-4444.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Sean Brodrick, Natural Resource Specialist at the Oxford Club. His website, energyandresourcesdigest.com. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me on.
And I guess it's our special Christmas edition. Yeah, I guess what makes it really special is it is Christmas.
Yeah. Well, it has been a pretty good year. It's been a very interesting year. A lot of ups and downs and stuff like that. I think many people are glad to get rid of 2016. I know that I had some bad stuff happen this year, but on the other hand, it's the bad stuff that makes you appreciate the good stuff, right? So we'll have a much better 2017 for sure.
I was going to say, the late night talk show hosts are all saying 2016, bad year, get rid of it. Well, but it all depends. Everybody has their own perspective on it. And I guess, if you took the right positions at the right time, you made a fortune. Yeah,
exactly.
Yes. And as we're speaking, the American equity markets again, advancing. Do you think that they're going to set a new top, and have they topped out?
That's a good question. A lot really depends on what happens in January, because then, Mr. Trump, once he's in office, will have to put up or shut up. And he's appointing people who are extremely fiscally conservative. That might start to scare the market when they see the things that will be cut. For example, his new budget director has promised to protect Social Security and, Trump promised to protect Social Security and Medicare, but he appointed a new budget director who has promised to do exactly the opposite of that. So I think the market's confused a little bit. But from China, we're seeing a lot more spending on infrastructure, that kind of thing. That's certainly moving things along. If Mr. Trump follows through on his promises to spend a lot of money on infrastructure in the U.S., that will move things along. That'll prime things up. I think the market was a bit shocked by the Fed's forecast for 3 rate hikes in 2017. They have to realize, though, that the Fed makes these promises and then it waits and sees what conditions dictate. And so if we do get 3 rate hikes in 2017, that's because the economy will be so rip-roaring that we don't mind 3 rate hikes in 2017. So if we do have a really hot economy, then we'll have more rate hikes. If we don't, then they won't hike nearly as much. So the market should really stop worrying about that and just kind of focus on what's in front of them, I think.
What's happening with the metal market right now?
Well, industrial metals are pulling back, which is, they had a great run. So some kind of pullback would not be surprising. Most of this seems triggered by the fact that stockpiles on the docks in China have hit like a 2-year high. But the Chinese often like to push the industrial metals markets around because they're the biggest buyer. So they'll run around saying, oh, we have a surplus, and then as prices go down, you find that the Chinese have been bidding it up. They've been doing all the buying as they talk prices down. So we'll probably see that kind of thing there. I expect we'll see 2017 will be a good year for the industrial metals. Precious metals, again, I just have to go back to those forecast Fed rate hikes. They really got scared by those Fed rate hikes, and that's why we saw a terrible week for the precious metals last week. That's really the end of it. We aren't seeing much of a bounce now either, and now they're really in a downtrend, so they have to prove themselves. That said, many of the forces that we talked about all last year are definitely coming true, which is we have peak supply of gold. We're probably going to see less gold production this year than last year, and then less again in 2017. We have pretty steady demand, though recently the investors who buy money through the GLD and like those kind of funds, they have been selling into the market. That's been one of the things that's been weighing on it, but that can come back again. So I would just keep my eye on supply, see how the market reacts to further economic news. And right now, though, the market is not happy, at least in the precious metal sector, and so things don't look good there. The one place we've had a good run is in oil. You know, I mean, it's back over $50. This is predicated on the fact that OPEC can keep its production cut agreements in place. Saudi Arabia really gave up a lot to get those in place. I think they really need it because they are being really squeezed on the whole revenue side. So they would rather sell less oil at higher prices. And again, it depends on if they can make it stick. They have to do it with Russia, which hasn't really worked out in the past. They have to do it with Iran, which is prone to cheat. And so right now, though, the market's pretty bullish on it. The big wild card in this is production from North America, which is already cranking up. I think this is a great time to be in those stocks that do oil field services because their phones are ringing off the hook right now. Certainly, many of those companies are doing very well because they're being put back to work. It might not last forever, but at least the next couple quarters should be very good for them indeed.
Sure. At my family reunion last summer in Alberta, there was a sticker on one of the guys' tool case that said, "Dear God, please let the oil patch have one good last run. I promise this time not to blow all my money."
Yeah, well, they say that every time, though.
What about people who keep saying oil is a dinosaur, literally, that's having a slow death, and to put any money into it is something that is going to be wasted because everybody will go to electric cars?
Well, maybe down the road. Certainly not now, though. I mean, if there's anything that's really feeling the squeeze of that, it has to be coal. And the reason for that is because in many parts of the world, solar power without subsidies has gotten to be cheaper than coal with subsidies. Now, it all depends where you are in the world because there are transportation costs and that kind of thing. But you can generally see the price of solar power is just getting cheaper and cheaper. Wind, too. The price of wind is coming way down. So the thing they have to solve in that is storage, and there's really been some progress in the last year with these fuel cells, which are lithium-based, you know. And so we're really seeing some real progress there. So I think coal has had an amazing run recently. The last 6 months has just been very good for coal. But I wouldn't actually price a lot more optimism in that. There might be some more, but just to look at China, for example, I think they said in the next 10 years they want to have renewables generate 27% of their power. And that's the kind of command economy where they can actually get that done. That would really be critical for coal because so much of like Chinese power comes from coal. But this is something the Chinese have to do. They just had to shut down factories in a whole bunch of their cities because the smog's so bad that they couldn't actually breathe the air, or at least many people had problems. So I would not be as optimistic on coal. It's had a great run. I might take some gains if I had some coal gains. I'm still feeling good about oil because oil is just one of the most useful substances. I don't think it'll all be replaced by electric cars in the next 3 or 4 years, though electric cars are definitely on their way, again, especially in places like China.
But you have to generate that power for those electric cars. Where's that going to come from?
Well, that's what I was just talking about.
Yeah.
We'll have more solar, more wind. That just seems to be improving with leaps and bounds and getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And so that's probably where that will come from. And, of course, it all has to be stored. Once you make energy, it has to be stored, and that's lithium. Now, there has been some worry recently that new mines are coming online fast enough that we'll see supply exceed demand in maybe second half of 2017 or 2018. That's certainly the potential for that. On the other hand, estimates of demand keep going higher and higher. So maybe there won't be. It'll certainly be a very interesting market, and I'm still watching that market closely because lithium is just very exciting. If there is a huge pullback, a huge sell-off, that's when I would get more interested in actually picking up some names because a lot of them got full of a lot of air. So big sell-off would bring some back to where we might want to pick them up again.
We'll have more with Sean Brodrick right after the break.
Gem International is a new diamond explorer in the richest diamond producing country in Africa, located next to the fourth largest producing diamond mine in the world. International Spotlight is on an 1109 carat diamond recently discovered in Africa by a fellow Canadian junior with a proven operator and finance team. Gem International trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol GI. Visit us at gemdiamondmining.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Sean Brodrick. Sean, one thing we know that the future is going to have a lot of promise in is self-driving cars. I mean, even now, BlackBerry is setting up a automated car research center in Ottawa. And, although the sale of actual physical BlackBerries may be down, they still have, the original brains around that invented the thing. And now, of course, so what do you think that the market's going to be like? Will it be people edging into it, and who will be the first brave souls to sit in the back seat of their car?
Well, I certainly would. You don't have to sit in the back seat, though. They are talking about building cars without steering wheels and gas pedals, which would be interesting. That will be further on down the road. The self-driving cars, I think that's a hugely disruptive technology, and it's probably coming sooner than many people think. And certainly for trucks, the trucking industry is going to change dramatically. And many people will remember back when robots first started to replace people in factories, many of those factory workers went off to drive trucks because they said, well, they'll always need someone to drive the truck to deliver the goods. Well, they might not need somebody to do it. I think robots are a huge threat to jobs, and our society has to figure out a way to actually deal with it. I'm not sure if any of the people in charge actually want to deal with that. But it's a big thing coming, and so we'll have to see how that goes. But if you could drive safely around, I think with your car being driven by some computer brain, I think that's something that many people would find very attractive because then they can catch up on their emails or talk or just read a book or chill out, you name it. And so I, for one, would be happy to do that, and I think many other people will too. Of course, the young guys who like revving the engines and being in control, they won't actually go for this at first. And I'm not saying it's going to be adopted by everybody overnight. I think electric cars are a lot closer. But still, driverless cars, they're definitely out there, and they're definitely something we're going to have to deal with more and more over the next decade.
Well, there's a company here in BC that specializes in, the interior lighting for cars using LED and even newer technology to do it. And I can envision in 10 years, your car will look more like your living room. I mean, a lot of people now put doilies over the backs of the seats and stuff, trying to make it look like a house. But it actually, you won't bother with windows. You'll just be in this little capsule that takes you places.
Yeah, I mean,
that's
why they're actually talking about designing cars now without steering wheels, without gas pedals. I mean, because that would be a huge price savings, wouldn't it? If they just had a car drive itself and they didn't have to put in all the redundant stuff for you to actually do it. And again, I think many people would go for that. I might be a little uncomfortable because the thing about machines is they always break sometime. So I'd like to be able to drive myself if the computer brain broke down. But of course, this will be fodder for countless science fiction stories where someone seizes control of your car and kidnaps you. So there's, that's coming too, and something we'll have to really worry about with hacking and all that stuff. We're only seeing more and more hacking nowadays. So eventually it'll get to the point where someone will hack your car and not let you out of it until you pay them a large sum of money, right? So we'll probably see that too. A lot of change is coming. Some of it is scary, and we just have to make the best of it.
Well, at least you have a good excuse for being late for work. I was kidnapped.
Yes. My car wanted to go to the beach. Yes.
Yes, exactly. But then you won't need giant parkades downtown to look after the cars while you're at work, because they'll just go to the nearest place where they don't have to pay for parking and wait for you to get off work.
Parking garages will become a lot more like desolate. And one thing you could do is, if you have a self-driving car, right, then while you're at work, your car could go work as an Uber, couldn't it? And so it could actually drive people around and make money for you while you're at your job, assuming you haven't been replaced by a robot. So that's, another weird thing that could actually happen in this thing, which is kind of fascinating.
Or could the new future be you have, instead of you working, you send your robot to go do your work?
Yeah, well, the boss might do that himself. Why have a middleman? Why not just replace you with a robot if you can be replaced with a robot?
The European Union is talking about a tax on robots to help pay for the social costs of laid-off workers.
Again, this is a problem we are going to have to deal with. I don't know if a tax on robots is the way to deal with it or what the heck, but it's something we are going to have to really deal with in the next 10 years. Finland's doing a thing, I believe it's where, like, if you are unemployed and you can't get a job, then they give you, like, a low level of income, and so it's yours to do with what you want. So it's not really welfare. It's like, just income you get because really there are no jobs for you. Maybe we'll move to that kind of system. I don't know. I know many people would hate that. I know I prefer working because it keeps you busy and you don't vegetate. Your brain keeps going. But I guess if jobs get more and more scarce, then that's something we'll have to think about.
Well, I know Switzerland recently had a referendum about should there be a national income for everybody, about $35,000 each. They voted it down because the Swiss are hardworking people and they don't like that notion. But France has something very much like that. Even millionaires get an annual salary, and the millionaires are upset that perhaps they might have to pay it back.
Well, France has all sorts of interesting problems. The head of the International Monetary Fund, Christine Lagarde, just got in trouble because there was some kind of sweetheart deal that she was overseeing that paid some like billionaire for a company he had to sell when he joined the government, was then resold, and he said that the government underpaid him, and so he complained, and so the government gave him another huge fund. And so there was a big fight. It was too much. She was supposed to be negligent. The amounts of money that are being thrown around by governments nowadays are just insane. So, again, we should all have big tubes of government money pointed at us, right? But we'll see what France does. They're certainly living in a interesting place with a huge migration coming from the Middle East and stuff like that. There could be some big political changes in France and across the face of Europe. I mean, we can talk about why those people are moving there from the Middle East to Europe, but certainly things like hunger and war, climate is a problem, stuff like that, and overpopulation, and so they've decided to move to Europe, and now Europe has to deal with it. We don't have that problem. I don't expect we will, but, it's certainly interesting to watch that little experiment go on there.
Right, and Trump has promised to reduce taxes. In Canada, the previous federal government reduced the corporate tax, and we saw something like 400 corporations in the U.S. move to Canada because it was cheaper here.
Oh, I didn't even know that. I would love to see that data.
Yes, Burger King was perhaps the most prominent one. Burger King owns Tim Hortons, which is a national institution in Canada. But
yeah, well, I that I really head to Maine in the U.S. a lot. It's like one of my favorite places to be. And this last summer, when I brought my family there, all the Tim Hortons had closed down, apparently across the entire state. I don't know what Maine did to tick off the Canadians, but that's really strange, because I always enjoy going to Tim Hortons.
Sean, have a great holiday. Have a great Christmas.
You too. Thanks very much. It's always great speaking to you, and I think we'll have a lot more fun in the year to come.
My guest has been Sean Brodrick, Natural Resource Specialist at the Oxford Club. His website, energyandresourcesdigest.com. You're listening to HowStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at TalkDigitalNet. Our YouTube channel is Talk Digital Network. Questions for the show, even for people like Sean, can be sent to info@HowStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of How Street Media Incorporated.